Hey, folks.
Hey, Greg.
How's it going?
Good.
How's the slashing stuff going?
So, last week, basically, let's see. So, we started out with having a map from validators to block hashes, and that was how that's how we store our latest messages currently.
Yeah.
And at first it almost felt like that is how we should pass our blocks into Rolang for the system process. Actually, never mind. Let me back up a bit. So for passing blocks into Rolang for the system process corresponding, we were originally just going to pass in a set of blocks. But then the obvious issue with that was that we don't know. Oh, sorry. We were going to pass in a set of block hashes, but the obvious drawback there was we don't know who created the block. And we can't pass in the set of blocks because then Rolang needs to be aware of Casper. We can't have that. If it's just block hashes, then we don't need to put Casper as a dependency because basically the block hashes just become byte arrays, or
Sure.
we just use
Yeah,
the
yeah.
G byte array type. Yep. So, and we can also just pass in validator or like that type, because the validator type is, or the validator ID is just a G byte array too. And so essentially we can pass in some form of block hash and validator pair, but it turns out it's easier to do it, at least on the Rolang side, if we go from block hashes to validators in the map. So then when we look up whether the validator, or when a block gets slashed, the I guess validator slashing would pass in the block hash, and so the system process would return this map, and it will allow you to get the block hash that was passed in, and it will return the validator responsible. But if there's no key for that block hash, then it will return yourself. And this sort of automatically makes it such that essentially if you make a mistake and attempt to slash a non-invalid block, then you get slashed yourself. And that's just with one lookup. So it lines up a lot better that way. And yeah, that's that's like the major change that happened.
Well, that sounds pretty good.
Yeah, I'm much happier about it.
Good, good. That's really good. Did you and Kayvon spend any time looking for that race?
Yeah, so we spent a lot of yesterday. So we started off essentially with adding print statements, and essentially we saw that like out of, let's say, 30 calls to immersion comma store,
Yeah.
like essentially immersion comma store does well, actually it's really two things. Like it first fetches both the metadata song map and the song map itself.
Right.
And then once it has grabbed those two, it does other stuff. And essentially, if you put a print statement within the first join, sometimes it wouldn't print anything out. And so that, like, it's manifesting as a race, but it seems like it's something to do with the tuple space implementation, because like as far as, or like every join involving those two resources was followed by putting back of like a putback of those resources. It's not anything that complicated there. So
So I have a suspicion. I wanted to double check this. I'm concerned that listenet name is not as synchronous as we think it is. In
oh no,
particular,
no, it's fine. Like we know the problem is before listen at name.
oh,
That's
okay.
guaranteed because we essentially, like, whenever we do
I mean,
immersion
not
dots.
sorry, not listenet name. I mean the deploy. So it could be that you know, we do the deploy, but that only launches a thread. It doesn't guarantee that the storage has actually happened. It just guarantees that the storage is scheduled.
So you're saying that we end up proposing before the scheduling finishes?
No, I'm saying that that propose only gets a only schedules. It doesn't. You don't know that event has happened. And if he doesn't know the event has happened when he listens at name, he doesn't know, he isn't certain that the storage has already happened.
Well, so by that theory, like if you wait an infinite amount of time, just in theory, after you propose, so between you do a propose and the listen data at name, if you waited an infinite amount of time, then that shouldn't be an issue, right?
Right. In fact, what I suggested to Kayvon was that we have a subscription-based API rather than a one-shot listen for data at name. You register a subscription, and when there is data at the name, then you are alerted.
I guess first of all, I'm pretty sure that's not the case because, like, Um, Essentially, we know based on the printout of like whether it managed to grab the resource or not, like whether how many successes are going to
Yeah,
follow.
but that line, but the fact that you're not getting 100% suggests that there's clearly a race, right?
Sure. Or there's no. There might be no races in Rolang.
No,
Just might be a bug in the implementation.
no, but no, I don't think there are any races in Rolang. What I'm suggesting is that the semantics are working exactly the way they're supposed to. So the propose happens, but that all the propose does is schedule the event. The event hasn't happened, and he has no indication as to when the event has happened, and so he's listening at name, kind of as a shot in the dark. He doesn't know the event has happened. The only reasonable API for that would be a a subscription model.
Well, sure, I agree with that. But I'm just saying that there's, I don't think that there's a scheduling problem because, or not even a schedule. Sorry, not a problem with the scheduler, but I meant like there's no issue. Like,
There's no issue in his Rolang. His Rolang is
exactly. There's no issue in his Rolang, and there's no issue with how we're scheduling, or not. Sorry, like so. The evidence is that if that was true, then like we wouldn't be able to correlate the standard out printouts with the number of successes that we have.
Why?
Because or we it would be like it shouldn't be that accurate. Like there like for example, if we're able to grab the map, let's say 13 times out of 30, then it should like that should have no correlation to the the amount of times we succeed at the listen for data at name call.
I'm not sure I understand why you're making that assertion. That it would seem like they would be directly correlated, right? Because he does um, that's exactly when that's the getting the data into that is exactly the propose, right?
Oh, sorry. So the way the proposed sorry when I said you run it 30 times, I meant like do 30 deploys in a row, and then okay, it's 30
30,
deploys in a row are done, and then a propose is done, and then a listen for data at name 30 times is done. That's like the setup. And
why are you doing 30 deploys? Are these different names?
these are different names. So we're doing immersion store to
30 different names.
30 different times to 30 different, or like
Names.
30 different contents and 30 different keys.
Oh yeah, sure. Okay, that makes sense. That's exactly what I'm saying, right? So each one of those is currently being scheduled, but you don't know which one of them are going to complete. You have no like it's non-deterministic. All you're doing is hanging a thread for each storage event, right?
But
And
then,
then
I mean, like, but the
and then when you
feedback is immediate, right? Like, if that's true, then like it should like or we know that for the ones that the standard out hasn't printed out, that eventually the standard out printout should come out, right? If we waited long enough.
That's right. Yeah.
But that's not true. It doesn't. Like it like what the it or it would be really weird for example, let's say 11 standard out printouts to come out for the ones that succeed, and then like if you wait, then that would happen, let's say within 5 seconds, and then we would wait, for example, 30, and there wouldn't be any other printouts that come out, right? Like if that was the case, it should be like maybe 11 happen in the first 5 seconds, and then in the next 5 seconds, probably another five should come in, and then hopefully in the next 5 seconds, maybe let's say five more come in.
Unless you're getting some kind of weird memory slowdown.
Sure, but like even then, you should get, like if it was exponential of a slowdown, then you should get like, one coming in the next 20 seconds at least, right? I don't know, unless it's like, I guess there's nothing about like the speed of the printouts that suggests, oh, like we just didn't wait enough.
Yeah, again, with non-determinism, that's hard to say, right? I mean,
Yeah, I totally agree. There's no,
you can't depend on speed as your answer. But
sure, there's no evidence, but
so I mean, but
I
there's
just
an
don't.
easy way to
Mhm.
check what I'm saying, right? How hard would it be to hook up a subscription at a subscription at name? So rather than a one shot, right? We like does gRPC support some kind of long polling mechanism that is continuous, so that if I mean, obviously gRPC, if it's going in over HTTP, it has to be some kind of long polling thing anyway, where you park a request and then that part doesn't matter. I guess all I'm saying is, if you we want to be able to register a callback. So the application says, notify me here when you get data at the name.
Um, so currently we do stream on the server end, but yeah, that
It's a different thing, right? Currently, if I remember listen at name correctly, it's a one shot synchronous call. So you make the call. If there's nothing at the name, you get back nothing. And
yes, I mean that's no, I agree. It's definitely how it works on the client.
Right. So what I'm suggesting is a different API where the client says,
yeah, no, I also understand like what I guess you're suggesting. I'm just thinking,
and that would be a debugging. It would be two things, right? It would be a debugging technique, right, which would eliminate your print state, any uncertainty in the print statements, right? If the client is still hanging, I mean, you could just leave the client up, right? And if the client is still hanging on any of those requests, then those requests are being starved.
yes, that is true. I guess, I mean, if we just want to work on the new, I guess, push-based API for listen for data at name, I'm for that. But I'm pretty confident that it won't help us with debugging the issue.
So you think that there's a bug in the tuple space deeper than just a misuse of the API? Because clearly, if the API is organized the way we're saying, then even if there wasn't a bug in the tuple space, you would always get a raise.
Yes, the like the the issue is known before we do the listen for data at name, and that's like I feel like I'm just not doing a good job at communicating that.
Well, I agree with you, but the issue can be known just because you're doing a print statement, right? You know that you're seeing a schedule. What I'm saying is the print behavior is still consistent with a race together with potentially another problem. But I understand your point of view that you feel that there's probably another error in the tuple space, and that seems reasonable to me. I mean, both are true, or both could be true. But my concern is that even if you fix the problem in the tuple space, the API still doesn't serve the application.
Oh yes, yeah, I agree with that, and I think redesigning the API would be a next priority.
Okay, cool. All right, then I think we're on the same page. So 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 you're able to repro this now, so we should be able to hand it over to Dom and Lukash, right?
Oh yeah, I've already posted on the chat. The well, it's reproducible from within the it's technically like an integration test, but anyways, it's a unit test within RSong. And so I thought it would be pretty straightforward to it's literally just copying the RSong contract and then the produces to the emergent store
Sure.
like 30 times. And
Yeah,
that
yeah,
is
yeah.
what I did on so we have like an interpreter util test for on the node side,
Yeah.
and I thought that would do it, but it didn't actually reproduce the issue. So I was really surprised.
That's
And
very interesting.
but the one thing that the immersion util doesn't do is it doesn't replay, or it doesn't redo anything related to cost accounting. So I'm wondering if somehow it's related to something there. Like,
Oh, I'm not sure I follow what you're saying about the cost accounting.
well, so, well, okay, I guess I didn't completely just plop in everything onto the node unit test. Like what the node unit test technically does something a bit different. It takes all those deploys and then runs them against the tuple space, but it doesn't do any Casper related logic. So um it sort of bypasses the whole like deploy and then propose like entry points from that it would normally have to go through, and it just directly runs it against the Rolang runtime and tuple safe space behind it. And so as a result, or for example, it doesn't validate the deploy signatures,
What's
like the
the
unit
reference of
test,
it here?
the unit test that I attempted. I,
Oh, I
I guess
see.
this is getting down in the weeds, but like essentially that until
Okay, I
like a
think
lot of
I'm grasping the essence of it. So there is a delta between um, your attempt to repro it in a smaller setting than the code that Kayvon has produced. So
yes,
you tried to do a transliteration, and that didn't do the repro. Um,
yes, and
so
this mhm. Oh
okay,
well,
so what that would give you a way forward, right? Since you know you've got correct behavior, is you can start adding more and more realistic reproduction until you hit the bug.
yep, exactly.
Okay, all right.
And I just want to add that the reason I bring that up is because we had like a string of issues with the tuple space like a couple months ago, and they there were a number of them, but all of them were caught with a unit test of this kind where we would just bypass a lot of the Casper logic, and we would run stuff against the tuple space with basically like the same format of the unit test, and we caught around, or like we accumulated around like five of these relatively corner case Erlang testing tests. And like I was expecting this to be another one of those, but it wasn't. So it seems like we yeah, so it seems like it's not an issue, just it wasn't like a deeper issue with what we had been sort of accumulating on the plain Erlang runtime over the past months, but it feels like it's something to do with what we added recently with cost accounting, which makes more sense to me. Like, yeah,
That makes sense to me as well. Um, but uh, yeah, I'm still confused as to how the the delta between your smaller attempt to reproduce the problem and the code that does produce the problem is treated differently with respect to the cost accounting.
so the my attempted reproduction has no cost accounting.
Because you're not deploying any contracts. I mean, there should be cost accounting for every deployed contract, right?
Oh, it's because the way we do cost accounting is we check the balance and then we execute the contract. And while we're, well, so we we do have a monad that accumulates the like, so it does run, I guess it does run cost accounting, but it doesn't actually attempt to subtract balances from the wallet. And um,
So in Kayvon's case, it does, and in the smaller repro, it doesn't.
yeah, it doesn't do the balance check or the actual withdrawal of however amount of gas it used.
Oh, okay. So cost accounting could actually account for this, right? If there isn't a sufficient balance, how is Kayvon getting around this, right? If he doesn't have a sufficient balance, some of those might not deploy.
Well, so we have the deploy flow price set at 0 and the limit at long max value.
I see. Okay.
So
yeah, you're jumping around it that way.
Yeah, like it should be fine in theory. Yeah.
Unless there's a bug there.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Then my feeling is that it has to do with how the tuple space interacts with like the new cost accounting code. Because sometimes, so like another thing, well, first of all, are we okay to just continue like doing this
sure.
kind of live debugging?
No, this is
Okay.
important. I don't think there are any other updates, right?
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So yeah. So the other thing we tried was, so I mentioned before that like the way we started was we did a printout before the join to grab the metadata map and the song map, and we would do a standard out printout after we managed to grab that. And so like, and then we would, because we did 30 deploys or so, we would sometimes see the printout that said like, I guess another reason to go back to why I believe this isn't just like a scheduling, a slow execution from the time scheduled problem is like the way it fails is it would succeed like 11 times first, and then it would fail every time after that.
Oh, okay. So that suggests that we're hitting some kind of trigger where we hit a condition in the tuple space or cost accounting, which is a gate. Yeah. You wouldn't see gating behavior. That's correct. You wouldn't see gating behavior if it was a scheduling issue.
Yep.
Agreed. Okay.
And what was it? Oh yeah. So the immediate thought I had was, well, if we can't grab either resource with the join, we should figure out exactly which resource that we aren't able to grab. And so in addition to the print statement that happened outside of this join, we did a fetch of each resource independently, and then inside, once we succeeded in the independent fetch or consume,
we sequentialize them,
or no, not even sequentialize, but like have a for that grab the resource, and then after getting them, just putting back the resource.
Oh, okay, yeah, got it.
With a printout, and then doing that with the other resource too in parallel with the join. And so what we would know, well, anyways, so the result we got was that it would always print out both resources, and then it would fail. So that was like that was kind of almost like definite proof it's not, or
wait, so you're saying you get both resources and then what was the behavior after you got both resources?
So like if we got both resources, the join should succeed, right? Because we then put back both resources, but the join doesn't go through, or the printout that happens after the join never got printed out. So it seems like it's there's some, or it's definitely not a Rolang issue is I guess the
No, it's a
the
tuple
proof.
space issue. I mean, I was convinced it was not Kayvon's code. I went through that code several times.
Oh yeah, and I think that proves, like, or let's put it this way: the fact that we can sort of constrain it down to, we do 2 resource putbacks, and then the join after that doesn't succeed, means that, like, it's between those, like, few lines of Rolang, and there's a
There's
really good
nothing that's
chance.
going on
Yeah.
in the rolling. It's
Yeah,
got to
yeah,
be in the tuple space, but it sounds suspiciously like it's a problem in the join semantics.
Yes, but specifically, well, not necessarily. Like for example, it could just be that it gets triggered. Like the join is, for example, it could be like a. I guess it could, for example, maybe this is just a shot in the dark, but it could be let's say, an expensive operation, even though that cost accounting shouldn't matter because we're using a flow price of 0 on long max. But let's say, for whatever reason, we have like this bug where if we have something expensive, then it would it would shoot it over the threshold of long not max somehow, and that only happens with a join, or like that's what the join triggers, and like that would explain it, for example. But
sure, but that should be easy to catch, right? We should be able to detect that one.
Yeah, I guess that problem in specific.
That specific problem, we should be able to just set a. I mean, you're in a place where you're doing all these print statements because you can't set a break.
Yes.
So you'd have to instrument the cost accounting code somehow.
Yeah, so that's sort of where I left off. Basically, I was gonna. So I was creating this unit test that was the way that we caught all the other bugs that were tuple space related a couple months ago, long before the cost accounting code went in, and I thought that would be the way to catch that, and I was surprised when that didn't work. So, like, the next step would just be create a more, as you said before, like a more, with more information, or with more, just like the integration test that Kayvon has type.
Well,
unit test, but on the node side. What did you say? Sorry.
We should be able to get Dom and Lukash and Joe involved, yeah, because this is.
And so, yeah, that's I posted, or I posted this on the Rolang chat, and Artur said we'll have a look tomorrow, and that was yesterday. So.
Okay, it sounds like you made pretty good progress.
Yeah, I think, like, once, like, or at least with the previous times that, or like for all the bugs that happened in the tuple space before, Once we got a unit test on the node side, it would be pretty, or like it would be like one day
Sure.
until like the fix came in. And so like the challenge is getting the unit test on the node side.
Yeah, well, we're getting close.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, cool. Well, thank you very much for that extra effort. We know a lot more now. I feel much more confident that we can resolve this.
Cool.
Awesome. Well, I ended up double booked. There's the retreat planning, and I'm supposed to be there too while I'm at this. So I'm gonna jump over and see if there's any discussion left.
Sounds good. I'll see you at stand-up.
Yep. See you in 20 minutes. Thanks, Christian.
Yep. No problem, guys.